All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it today here. So markets, kind of like the opposite of yesterday. So spiders down 0.5%. And the Qs down, I think they were up 1.1 exactly yesterday, and they're down 1.1 today. So kind of a reverse rolls here, Qs leading to the downside. And the spiders, moderately down here today. But all four major indices finishing in the red after kind of an afternoon fade. So we gapped down this morning, had a little bit of a dump out, found a low here just after piercing yesterday's low. And then we rallied up. We broke through the highs there, and we went to the level that we talked about yesterday. So I said above this would be, give you the upside bias to 450. We tagged it. This is kind of like a tag and tank, just right back down. And we did, looks like 445.51. Did we fill that gap? Yeah, so we just filled the gap from 2 days ago, or Friday rather, by the close. I could see a little bit more downside here now that we've broken yesterday's low, possibly even into just 445, 444. But again, we have CPI tomorrow. A lot of this move is probably just hedging. A lot of it, I think, is also call bagging. So I talked about this yesterday, like stocks like Tesla that were up 10% yesterday. You had to think that they were going to theta burn this today, and you can see Tesla pulling back in. They pumped it up in the morning, got more calls on board, and then faded it really all day long. Not a terrible, price action for Tesla, don't get me wrong, but just, keep in mind, this is the type of stuff we're going to see this week. There's going to be more upgrades. There's going to be more downgrades. There's going to be more rumors. That's just the nature of it when you have a quarterly OPEX. So expect that type of price action. We also had the Apple event today. And Apple, again, I still don't like this chart. So lots of damage last week with that gap. You can't get back above the 20 DMA. Not a good sign. And, an outside move down last week, too. I mean, ultimately, I think this needs to go down to 160 or 155. Doesn't mean it'll happen in a straight line, but if this continues to consolidate here, this can push through these lows and get down to that 160 area. That was really your big breakout, 155, 160. But again, maybe it gets a little bit of a bounce tomorrow. Again, CPI tomorrow, it is expected to come in hotter than. So yeah, it would be July. So last month, August. It is expected to come in hotter, but the market already kind of prices that in, has priced that in, and the market's not expecting a rate hike either next week, unless we get some type of ridiculously overprint, ridiculously hot print. However, that could affect the November meeting. So again, we'll just keep an eye on that. What happens this week here, it's going to be tough to say. I think if we gap up tomorrow, we probably can come down. Again, I don't like how we lost yesterday's low. So if we gap down, maybe for a day trade, might be a shorting level or shorting opportunity, possibly down to this green bar low or at least the 444 handle. Again, these are just short-term levels here. But again, bottom line still remains the same. We take this out. I don't care if it's CPI, PPI, jobless claims, you name it, whatever. We take that out on a closing basis, then there's more downside coming. That's how simple I'm keeping it right now. If we get above here on a closing basis, intraday, I say 450. On a closing basis, though, daily close, you could possibly even get back up to the highs here. So that's how we're going to keep it right now. No need to make it more complicated than it is. But again, going into the end of the week, if we look at the SPX, it wouldn't surprise me if we get stuck between 4,450 and 4,500. And then I think you could get a bigger move possibly next week. But again, this is just what we're doing right now. A lot of backing and filling, a lot of chopping, a lot of theta burn, right? So just keep that in mind. Qs here down 1.1%. Again, essentially reverse the entire move from yesterday. Closing right on the 50 MA again with Apple down 2%. It's going to be hard for the market to rally. It's just the way it works. You could have, you take this pivot out here, you're going to have a series of lower highs. So keep that in mind. Short term, you could also make a case too, if we look at an hourly, just to tighten it up. You could make a case you got kind of a trend line kind of coming in here, which also, believe it or not, yeah, look at how parallel that is right there. So watch that. Going to tomorrow, it could be a short-term level. We break through that. especially on a close. You go down here. If you take that out, then it's down here. So again, really simple. These levels are very simple right now. If we pop back up, 380 is still resistance. So that's really what it's going to come down to. For me right now, it's really simple. So again, I don't, there's a lot of noise going on right now, a lot of macro, a lot of cross currents, Apple event, CPI, but you just keep the levels simple and they usually guide you pretty well. All right, over to the Russell. So that was red again today. Not down a ton, down just 18 cents, but not a great pattern here. Again, you make a case it's trying to put in a head and shoulder. There's your neckline there. Has not triggered yet, so we don't want to get too crazy, too excited about it. Again, wait for it to trigger before we even consider it. But, if we start to base here, that could be setting up a bear pattern from this move down. So, again, watch that, 200 moving average, that neckline there. If we break that, then Russell probably has to go down to 175. But, again, it's just hanging in there right now, and it's an OPEX week. We're not going to get too excited. Dow finishing down 16 cents on the DIA. Again, nothing major, nothing crazy. Tried to get above the 50, couldn't. And, again, it's still just ping-ponging in between these levels here. So, again, let's not make a whole lot out of that either. Semiconductors are weak, and I have noted that very much so lately. SMH down 75 basis points today. Again, never closed above this red bar. It's not a coincidence. It got closed 2 pennies below. And it could be setting up for a move down into this area. So we'll keep that on the radar. If the semis are weak, generally gives me a weak bias towards the market. Another thing, too, in technology land, one strong sector has been IGV, but that changed today, down almost 3%. Oracle got pounded on earnings, so I forgot that they reported yesterday, so forgive me for not covering that. Down 13.5% today, though, and this has been a big market leader. Take a look at the volume there. That is big time volume. Take a look. This is a weekly. We're 2 days into the week here. So we're probably going to match the breakout volume there. Now maybe it bounces back up by the end of the week. There's nothing to say it can't. Let's look at a monthly really quick. Yeah, so pretty good monthly candle there. And we did fill the gap there. Pretty good tail candle. We'll see how this recovers by the end of the week or doesn't recover. But then that was a pretty good slice. And we did have, Intuit. I talked about this a lot. Intuit, CRM, CrowdStrike had really good earnings. And that helped out Cloud a lot. I think Adobe reports tomorrow after the bell, if I'm not mistaken. So take a look at that. We'll watch that into tomorrow. But Cloud has been really strong. And today that changed. So again, short term, we'll look at 350, 352, these moving averages, as well as that pivot high from the 24th. That's a major level. So if that holds, then Cloud's okay. If that breaks, then probably has to go back and revisit 340, maybe even down to this trend line, which we never really got to, by the way. So something to watch there on Cloud. But yeah, Oracle taking a pretty big hit. And the weekly close on that will be important. Dow Transport's definitely on the weaker side still. Down 0.5% today. Not exactly a great bounce, right? Big move down, bear flag, and we're just sitting here. This is not good price action. Again, we talked about 15,250 being a level. We've gotten there, we got through it, and we haven't really seen a defense. So I think the bigger level here is probably 14.8 to 14.9. You got a little bit of support with the 100 MA, but if this stays bear flagging like this, it can cut right through that. So just be aware of that. Transports are still on the weaker side, and they could be telling us something. Over here, too, interest rates. Again, not much to add. 2-year holding up. Another close above 5%, though, 5.02. 4.42. 10-year backed off a little bit, and the 30-year backed off a little bit. So yield curve's coming in just a touch. Nothing crazy. There's the 210 and 310. 5s and then 10s and 30s. Nothing too significant going on. Again, this is the big level here. You get through these pivots on the 2-year, and that's really going to put pressure on the market. Maybe even towards the November meeting, but again, we'll see. CPI tomorrow can obviously move the bond market around, and we're seeing some jockeying for position. Anyways, XHB here, that took a pretty good hit today as well. We talked about kind of this hourly pattern. Even though we had an outside move yesterday, it was still inside of this red bar just outside of the last couple of days, and pretty good fade here, closing below that white trend line. So again, nice little rollover there for the XHB. If it continues, we'll look at that 100 moving average there. So XHB down 2% on the day, definitely on the softer side. VNQ here, down just 4 cents. Again, 83 short term, 84, and then 78. Nothing really crazy going on there. The XLF here, Did get an outsized bid here today, and that acted well. That also helped prop up the market. Another ETF I want to start looking at here is KBWB. So you guys know we look at the KBE and the KRE as well. And lately I've been talking about the XLF, and not fond of how Berkshire is involved in that. It's basically just another company that holds Apple. But this does have just the big banks in it, and the major big banks. KBE has big banks, but it's not so much the JPMs, the Bank of Americas. So I'm kind of taking a look and experimenting with this one here a little bit. So expect to see this a little bit more. But again, you can see not a great chart, right? Compare this to the XLF. This is why I talk about how I don't like the XLF because of Berkshire. Look at how strong this chart looks versus this. This is just JPM, Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and a few others. There's no real holding companies. It's just banks. So again, weekly, that's pretty soft. That is not a good pattern there, not a pattern of strength. So something to keep on radar there. Lower highs, if we take this out, probably wants to go back to 38. KBE here, again, it's trying to hold up. Similar kind of chart pattern here, although this is actually in better shape. But again, if you take out these pivots here, it's probably down to 36, 35, 50. KRE, again, still on the softer side. Don't like this one either unless it can get back above, at least 44.50 here in the near term. Then you got some more work to do to get back above 46 in this gap window. But again, could be putting in another minor bear pattern here. And if we have continuation down, it's looking like $40 there. So just keep that in mind. Again, I'll try to cover those a little bit more, or at least the KBWB. I am trying to work that in a little bit. Broker dealers here up 68 basis points. Again, 510 still a level there. Crude up another 2%. So just does not want to relent. And this is why I say, as soon as you got above this level, it's why I said, 83.53, we get a weekly close. This can go a lot higher. Now, again, I didn't think it was going to happen this quickly, but you're seeing it squeeze up here, going into a red bar high though. So 89.37, we could get up to 90 or so. Then you're into that red bar high and a breakdown area, right? This was a bull pattern here, big weekly bullish inside bar, and it failed. So there should be some trapped buyers there, and that's kind of the thought process. But again, crude's holding up. Definitely respect it. Take a look at XLE. This is, again, why we don't take too many moves seriously with quad witch. We talked about this yesterday. Big reversal, and then up another 2.3. It basically almost took out the high yesterday. So again, these moves can get reversed very easily. But, energy's still holding up. XOP inside day, but again, up 2.42. OIH, new highs. So again, we're now into that 100-month moving average, about another $2. Risk reward here, I think, is very limited to the upside. But again, it's holding up really well. Since I get a bazillion requests, we'll look at URA. Down just a penny today. Again, still still looking at this weekly level here. URNM. Again, kind of into this weekly pivot, big red bar there. And then CCJ is just, to me, very overbought into a long-term level there. It got a little bit of a bid today, but again, I don't trust it. It's OPEX. By the way, if you look at the option chain for this for Friday, it's literally like 10-to-1 calls to puts. So there is incentive for some downside here. But again, it came off the highs. Nice bid there. Uranium's holding up. I just don't think it's a good buy here. I think it's more of a hold. And then you kind of add into weakness or into correction or into corrective moves here. Nat gas up 5.3. Big move. Again, ascending triangle. Big move on volume too. I know there's lots to talk about the strikes in Australia. Maybe that finally puts some upward pressure on price. Another thing I'm watching here is this little pennant or wedge. Kind of went up into that today and backed off, but a big powerful move intraday, closing above the gap window and filling that gap there. So you get above this, then it's 286, and then it's really up to $3 for Natty. But nice powerful move there for natural gas. We'll see if that can continue over into the end of the week there. All right, dollar index. Surprisingly quiet day, but again, this is not a bad pattern. It's not a pattern of weakness. That 20 MA catches up and you consolidate more. This can go into the 106 106.50 handle. I don't see any issues here with the DXY. Looks strong. Gold down 60 basis points, so testing the 200 again. Again, the levels have not changed on this for a long time. 1900, 1825. We're not going to spend all day on it. Silver here could be putting in a little bear pattern. Again, it's a little premature, but if it does, setting up for another push down into these pivots one more time. And then platinum here getting a little bit of a bounce. Still think that needs to go down into the mid 850s. Palladium getting a small bounce here as well. And then copper, a little inside day. Nothing terrible there for copper, but I'm not doing anything with it currently. All right, Bitcoin, and I said this yesterday too. Again, one more thing here. This is why I don't trust those moves. Breakdown, right, yesterday, and then right back up today. Outside move up. Did stall out at the 20 though, so not really a convincing break or reversal, but there's a reversal nonetheless. Still, if we look at the weekly, big picture, bearish and sidebar, right? And we did close below that green bar, so that is failed. If this puts in more of a base here, it can go to 21.5. And that's all I'd be interested in doing with it right now. My guess is, though, it gets down there and it does one of those flash crashes on Saturday night at 10 o'clock when nobody's paying attention and nobody's able to buy the dip because they're all out partying or with their family. But in any case, Bitcoin getting a little reversal here, and we'll leave it at that for now. All right, lastly, over to the spiders. Again, levels have not changed. Big surprise, right? 4450, 4500 area. Above this, on an intraday basis, you'll have resistance at 450, and then I feel for 453.50 on a close. Downside, you take this out on a close, then we can talk about lower levels. But until that happens, again, we're just in this range here, and we'll be neutral here during the quarterly OPEX week. So, anyways, guys, gonna wrap up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. Enjoy the new Discord. It's awesome. I'll talk to you guys all tomorrow.